How about faith? How about faith? I mean, seriously, hope. Hope is something that was pulling us, something that gave us strength, enormous amount of strength as witnesses. We had this engine that was pulling us towards a new system because we had a vision, a clear vision of why we're doing what we're doing. And with that vision, we knew exactly what the future holds. So yes, we had to sacrifice some stuff. We had to sacrifice maybe our education. Some people sacrificed having a family. Some people sacrificed maybe buying a home or certain job or promotion or starting a business. All those sacrifices were worth it because we believe that we're going to have a much better life in the future. That idea that no matter how big of a sacrifice right now, including death, it is worth it because everything will be restored in paradise on earth. And you could imagine just having a beautiful house and a tiger in the backyard and having your friends and fruits and eat them. You know what? There is a moment when you go through, maybe it won't happen. And slowly and surely you had to transform from having that vision to realizing that it was all delusion. And when that bubble bursts and you have no more delusion, then you're thinking, what am I going to replace it with? What's better? And no matter how good of a vision that was, if it's not real, then it doesn't matter what it was. You go to Mormon church, they'll tell you, oh yeah, you can be a god on another planet. Although apparently recently they updated that understanding with a new light. But that's what people believed, that they could be gods. They were going to get their own planet. You can go to a Muslim temple and what? They'll tell you you're going to get 72 virgins. No problem. You just got to do what we tell you, and we have a recipe for salvation. And if you do what we tell you, you're going to get your reward in paradise. You can go to Hinduism and ask for nirvana. Whatever it was, people had this vision that was pulling them, and it was worth the effort. And even if something was not understood properly, or it was completely illogical, it didn't matter. As long as you had that vision, you're like, okay, maybe we don't have everything right, but I want my house with a tiger. And it was weird. Some witnesses were going door to door in the rich neighborhoods, and they would say, "Oh, you know, I'm gonna take that house," or "I love this house. I'm gonna live in a house like this, or in this house after Armageddon. If Jehovah does not destroy those houses, I want that house." It's crazy when you think about it right now, but a lot of witnesses think that way until today. It's odd. See, faith gives people enormous amount of strength. Enormous. And it's not only limited to humans. They threw a rat into the water just to see how long he's going to last before he drowns. 20 minutes and he's dead. But if you take the same rat after 15 minutes and you rescue him, dry him up, pat him a little bit, put him back in the water, guess what? That same rat will keep on swimming for 60 hours. 60 hours before he drowns. Why? Because he has a belief. He has a belief that somebody will rescue him, that he has something to look forward to, there is something to look forward to, and he will have that strength. He will push himself over and over and over again because there is hope. And we had that strength, and people would endure enormous amount of pain. They would be put in concentration camps and said, you can leave, there's a door right there. All we have to do is sign this paper saying you no longer are a Jehovah's Witness, say Hi Hitler and go. And people said, no, shoot me, I won't do this. Because they had faith. They said they had hope for a life in paradise. And they thought, why would I save my own skin right now for, I don't know, extra 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, whatever, and sacrifice eternity? It was very, very crushing for me to realize that it was all a delusion, because that faith, that hope, it was something that was pulling me towards doing the things that I was doing, towards decision that I was making, towards making sacrifices in my life. And I was training that to my family. And when this delusion just boom bursts like a bubble, like a balloon, and you have nothing to replace it with, it can be very crushing, to the point where some people go into a deep depression, and I did too, because you feel like you have nothing to look forward to. You have no vision. Everything you work for eventually will vanish. With your death, everything will end. Here's the good part. The good part is this. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to be afraid of an Armageddon, because even the most active witness could never say, I am certain that I will not die at Armageddon, because it's always told them, maybe, probably you'll be saved in the last day. So not one of them could say for certain that they are saved. There are some Christian denominations that believe, oh yeah, I am saved. Once you're saved, you're always saved. But that's not the belief of Jehovah's Witnesses. So they always had that uncertainty that they could, even in a day before Armageddon, they're going to, have a little problem and God will not choose them. You no longer have to worry about Armageddon, because it is a delusion. It's not true. And you don't have to worry about that. The good part is most witnesses didn't believe in hell either. Most Christians do, most Muslims do, but we as witnesses, we were never taught that that is a real place, so we don't have to worry that we're going to be tortured forever and ever. That is also a delusion. So that's the good part. That's the good news. That fear of being destroyed at Armageddon can be gone. At the same time, although it might seem weird or counterintuitive when you're thinking, oh, you know what, there is no savior, nobody's coming to save me. But the truth is, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you realize there is no savior, then your future depends on your decisions. That's what will make a huge difference. See, I know you know this story because I think it was said in every congregation on the planet. There was this circle of Vizier, and the circle of Vizier was in trouble, financially in trouble. He had this bill, and he couldn't possibly find a way to pay it. So he prayed and prayed and prayed. And before he had to pay the bill, somebody knocked. And what did they bring? They brought an amazing amount of fruits and vegetables and groceries, whatever they needed. And there was an envelope. Yes, there was an envelope with the exact amount of money that these people needed. And they were able to pay this bill. You remember that story? You heard that story? Of course you did, because everybody heard that story. But I tell you a little secret. Other churches have exactly the same story. They just replaced the word circle of Vizier with a bishop or a priest or whatever. The same story. Exactly the same. And yet, when we think about it, and I thought about it, because I was in a really dark place, and I'm like, I don't have money to survive. I was making minimum wage. I was waking up 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work, like an hour and a half away from where I live. And I was making enough money to pay for car payments, gas, insurance, and rent. Which means if I have to buy groceries, I have to rely on my wife's income. My wife worked part-time and she was pregnant, which meant very soon what we will both earn will not be enough to survive. And I remember that was not easy, and I'm praying to Jehovah, please help me. I need a savior. I don't know what else to do. I'm working really hard. It's not like I'm lazy at home sitting watching TV. I'm working really hard. I don't think I can work any harder. And what's happening? Where are my blessings? Where is my guy who will bring me an envelope or somebody that will save me from this trouble? The credit card's maxed out, payments growing really quickly, and I can't do anything about it, no matter how hard I work. And then I realized the Savior is not coming. The Savior is not coming. My first answer was, well, maybe that's not how God answers the prayers. Maybe God will bless my efforts. Maybe I got to do something different and then create a different results by doing some different actions. because what I have done so far and what I created so far was nothing but a mess. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's how God works. You do things and then he will bless your efforts. But then I thought, well, what if there are twins and they do exactly the same kind of work, and one prays and the other one does not pray? Would I be able to notice the difference? I'm like, maybe not. And that was one of my first doubts when I thought, oh, maybe something doesn't work here. But at the same time, I felt empowered. I truly felt empowered, because I'm like, now for the first time, I feel like it's up to me. I'm not going to blame anybody else. I can't point fingers onto somebody else. I can't wait for a savior to come and pay my bills. It's up to me. And it was very empowering, because now it's like I took control over my own life. And it paid off, believe me, because I started relying on my own decisions. And I realized that my future does not depend on some invisible being that will come and save me. It depends on my decisions today. And the decisions that I will make today will have a good or bad consequences for my future and the future of my loved ones. And it was very empowering. And it's very strong. It builds your confidence when you start relying on your own strength, and you're going to make mistakes. But guess what? You're not going to blame anybody for it. You're going to say, I made those mistakes. I can learn from them. I can move forward. It is very, very, very strong feeling that I recommend to everybody. Go make mistakes. Go make mistakes. Fail forward. It was crazy for me. I realized I cannot afford rent. And what I did, I bought a house. That's right. Everybody told me I'm crazy. How can you buy a house when you're not making any money, and you don't have an income? The bank will never give you a mortgage, and even if they give you a mortgage, you will not be able to pay it off. And yet I pulled it off. And yet I built my own house from scratch. Yes. Why? Because I started believing in myself. I started having a clear vision of how I want to run my life in the future. I saw my life and my family's life 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And I realized I have to make decisions today about how my life will be 20 years from now. Instead of saying the end is just around the corner, there's no need to save for retirement, there's no need to invest, there's no need to build houses, there's no need to do all those things. I'm like, you know what? I watch the governing body, and for some reason they're investing and they're saving for retirement, and they're building new places, and they're buying properties, and they're investing constantly in real estate. Why wouldn't I copy what they do? Why do I have to listen to what they're telling me? I can just do what they do. And my future will be similar, because they are very wealthy company. Trust me, they are. Might be in financial trouble right now, but for a very long time they were going up and up and up. So that's what I did. And believe me, you will feel it too when you know that your life depends on your decisions, not somebody else's. But truthfully, when you think about the life that we have, if you had this magic button that will take you back in the past, when would you like to go? Think about it. If you could go back in time, how did people live 100 years ago? Do you remember how your grandma lived? In what type of a house? What kind of cars people were driving 50 years ago? How did they travel? Was it possible to listen to the music the way we're listening to it right now? Was it possible to communicate the way we are communicating right now? Think about it. Imagine that you were a king or a pharaoh. I don't care. Somebody super rich 1,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago. And you got to go to a dentist. Or you got to deliver a baby. Or your appendix bursts. Those things today, they're nothing. They're nothing. But back then, it was a really big deal. Most people lost their teeth by the age of 35 or 40. No toothpaste. No toothbrush either. And yet, they had to endure, something's wrong with your tooth. There's no filling either. Got to rip her out. Not that simple. Life was a lot harder. Most women and children were dying during the birth. A lot of people, and excruciating pain. And if a woman was not that important as men, and if she had a baby, a lot of times they opened her up with a sword and took the baby and saved the baby because the baby was the next king or whatever, but the woman would die. They wouldn't care. Horrible. Very barbaric wars that they had compared to the ones that we have today. Just name me one thing that didn't get better, because Jehovah's Witnesses think, oh, this is the worst time ever. The worst. Look, the wars are happening. The pandemic is happening. Look at the pandemic we just had. It's a joke compared to the ones that people had before, when millions, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of people died. 1/3 of the world's population was affected by the Black Plague. 1/3. Do you know the amount of people that would die today if 1/3 of the world's population would die? It's like entire Europe, North America, and South America would disappear. Those were the problems back in the day. But today, we don't have to face those problems. Majority of the things were taken care of. A lot of diseases we managed to get rid of. Who worries about leprosy? Leprosy was something that was torturing people for thousands of years, and they couldn't get rid of it. And yet today, who worries about leprosy? Polio. Horrible diseases. But today's medicine took care of it. There are certain things that we cannot take care of course. And there are problems still in the world. There's a lot of people who are hungry. There's a lot of people who don't have the things that we have today. But guess what? Things are getting better. Just look at water. If you were a king 1,000 years ago, do you think you had access to a nice clean water and a nice tap with cold and hot and a nice shower like you do in your own home? Not a chance. That was not that simple. What did people have to do to get water? And get a clean one without bacteria. Good luck with that one. Sometimes we just have to sit and actually admire the times that we're living in and be grateful for the times that we're living in, because future is nothing but good news for us. And sometimes it might be scary because you're thinking, oh, you know what? It's scary what people can do in one country or another. But truthfully, we have gone really far. And you might be even scared of AI. Nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of. Our life will actually get better and better. Our medicine will extend the time and extend the time that we're living in. So if your average life right now is 75 to 80 years, depending where you live or whether you're a man or a woman, we already doubled our lifespan. And now we can increase it quite dramatically. They're coming up with really amazing medicine that can extend our life probably 20 to 30%. And that will be very soon available. There's so many things to look forward to. So many things that this in our lifetime, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see radical changes in the technology that we're using that will make our life actually magnificent. So when it comes to hope, when it comes to vision, you'll see that our life is something worth cherishing. Every single day, we should cherish our life. We don't know how many days we have ahead of us. Some of us have it longer, some of us have it less. But you know what? It doesn't matter. If you live in gratitude, in appreciation for every day, then that will be a life worth living. And if you do it right, once is good enough. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.